you go through life and your values, your strengths, your purpose, they're at work in you, but you just don't know it. And so what we want to do as the most important step is we want people to be able to see that so that they can apply it with conscious intention in terms of how they move forward. Like these are the assets, when you do that military mission analysis, these are the assets that you have available to create value. And the better we can help people understand them, the better that they can go and apply them. And that's where we think coaching is such a unique intervention, because the way these things present themselves is through the emotions. The positive emotions become the reinforcer, the negative emotions telling you that you're starting to glide off track. I know when Adam and I were growing up, emotions are a bad thing. You're not supposed to have them. You're not supposed to show them. Like these things are still working in you and you're still feeling these things. You're just ignoring them. So that's what we have come to think, that, all right, well, this is the way that you help junior leaders is at first start with seeing themselves and really understanding themselves and helping them recognize how they can apply these things in a very conscious, deliberate way.
Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. So, okay, super stoked to jump in to talk to fellow leadership, folks, and really, really excited to kind of hear your guys' journey. And Adam has kind of given me a little bit already, which is incredible. And learn and just because I'm still very much growing in the craft of leadership and coaching. And for me, kind of our space is emotional intelligence, is kind of our little niche. And I would even argue even more niche is for us is folks that are kind of either new to or early on in their journey of maybe leader development or emotional intelligent leader development. So I'm excited to kind of learn kind of your guys's, niches and that kind of thing. But before we kind of jump into some of those niches, how did you guys get into this space?
Jason, you want to kick off with kind of your start, after the Army?
Yeah. I left the Army a couple of times. I left in 2000. I worked for a company called Lucent Technologies. Lucent got shellacked during the tech bubble burst when that happened. And they laid off tens of thousands of people, including me. So I was actually unemployed for a while, and I considered going into the Coast Guard. I didn't. In the process of talking to a bunch of mentors, they had convinced me to go back into the Army. And I did. And I actually, ironically, I sent out the note saying, "Hey, I'm going to come back into the Army." I sent that out on September 10th, 2001. And next day the whole world changes. Well, fast forward, now I'm retiring from the Army, and I didn't do it very well the first time. And so what I decided to do was get an MBA. And I went through the MBA at UNC program at Keenan Flagler Business School. And one of the first things they did in that program was they had us take this vocational inventory. I don't remember which one it was, but for me, like the top career path for me was, as like it said, professional coaching and mentoring is what it said. And when I sat down with the career counselor, she was like, "Hey, what do you think about that?" And my answer was, well, I mean, coaching is just a part of what like every leader does in the military. And she asked me, she's like, "Did you ever think about being a professional coach?" And what I told her was, I said, "I don't know enough about football or basketball for me to." And she laughed, but I didn't know what she was talking about. And apparently she was talking about the kind of coaching that I do now. But when she explained it to me, she's like leadership coaching and life coaching. I had no idea what the hell that was. But I know there's no MOS for it in the military. There's no post-secondary graduation program for that. So it was really hard for me to believe that this was a credible profession. And so fast forward, I retire, I take a job, it's the wrong job. I start working in another place, that's the wrong job. And it got to a point to where my wife went back to work. She was a hospital administrator when we met, got married, and had a bunch of kids, and then went back to work. And it was a good time for me to say, "Hey, I'm going to try to find out what this coaching thing's all about." And I reached out to an organization that was like, "Hey, fill out our contact form, and we'll tell you everything you want to know about the coaching profession." And that was, believe it or not, that was my first step. And that's like 7 years ago. And what told me that coaching was probably the right thing for me was I changed my profile on LinkedIn that said that I was a coach. And I had a guy reach out to me who I had worked with at Fort Polk. And he said to me, he was like, "Hey, I want to learn more about this coaching thing," because where he was working, they were told to hire coaches for their executive development team. And so I'm just talking to him about what coaching is. And he was like, "Great." He's like, "Would you coach our people?" And I was like blown away. I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm not even done with like the training and everything else." And he told me this story about one of these mornings when we were at JRTC after a long night, and he had confided some things in me. I had a conversation with him, and he was like, "Hey, that conversation changed my life." And I couldn't even remember the conversation, but that was my tell that, hey, maybe you should go all in on this. And so I didn't know anything about what it was like, and I just kind of leaned in, and I've been riding the wave ever since. And so that's the real long story about how I got into coaching.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great, Jason. That's great. That's great. I mean, and to have such a at least for your buddy, a significant emotional event where you're that conversation that you didn't even remember was like life transformational for him is that's powerful, dude. That's a talk about validating and affirming your strengths and the gifts that God's given you, dude, without even the formal or official training, so to speak, which it seems like our society is so big on all the I think it's comical the LinkedIn acronyms after people's names, right? It's like the alphabet soup. And it's like it does because what I've noticed is like I love hearing that story over, well, I've got 87 certifications and degrees. Well, you can still have a low EQ and suck as a coach with
Yeah.
1,000 degrees and a PhD in behavioral psychology, right? And so that is like you said, confirmation. Like this is clearly something that you've got inside of you, which is, I mean, that's awesome. That's powerful. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Adam, how about you, brother?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was, as I think I mentioned to you the last time we talked, Noble, I've had a very nonlinear career progression. Jason and I were West Point classmates. I was a lacrosse player up there. Met my wife Jen, who's another classmate of ours, obviously, and then kind of meandered through. I don't think I was a great leader when I was an officer. Left the military, decided to become a stockbroker, hoping to retire at 30. One of those stupid stories, and then ended up leaving that job because my wife and I started a family. We wanted to move back to California, or from California to Florida, and raise our family near mine. And sold musical instruments for 11 years. I'm not a musician, and then tripped into the Wounded Warrior Project. Had no nonprofit background and no desire to work in a nonprofit or a veteran service organization, but everything came together. And my 8.5 years at WWP were the greatest professional experience I've ever had. Because we had a mission every day. We put together a phenomenal team. We were serving some of America's most deserving. And during that 8.5 years, I really fell in love with mentoring and coaching my teammates at WWP. I learned a lot about organizational health. We were big Jim Collins and Pat Lencioni disciples. And when I left WWP, I left because I wanted to become a consultant, a coach, and a mentor, much like Jason, not knowing anything about what executive coaching really was. And so I kind of kicked around my own small business and did a lot of different things for about 5 or 6 years, and then decided to go back to school, study organizational leadership, and get my executive coaching certification, ironically. And then last year, almost exactly a year ago, I found out that I was going to need a triple bypass surgery. And I had 6 blockages in my heart. I've had heart issues since I was even a cadet at West Point. And in that same week, my wife found out she had breast cancer. And so literally within a week of one another, we got that, double barrel shotgun blast of reality. And so I went on Facebook and I said, it wasn't a request for support. We're in a very good position, spiritually, emotionally, financially, family wise. But it was like, hey, please go see your doctor. Like my wife had hers, I had mine. The diagnoses were not what we hoped for, but they were what they were. And it was because of early detection. Jason, my wife and I lost one of our classmates, a guy named Todd Susi, to a heart attack last April 23. Todd and I kind of built the same, big guys, former athletes, and that was a wake up call. Todd has 4 children and a family that I'm close with and love. And so anyway, we got these diagnoses. I went on Facebook. I said, hey, here's what's happening. And lo and behold, my brother Jason sees the post and says, hey, man, I had a very similar experience about 3 or 4 years ago. He experienced sudden cardiac death, which means he had a heart attack and had to be revived. And oh, by the way, I live 5 miles away from you. so, hey, when you go through surgery and you're in recovery, let's get together. So I go meet him for coffee once I was released to drive, and we're sitting at the coffee shop, and he says, hey, I want you to be the CEO of this organization that I'm a part of. So we kicked that can down the road about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. We had another coffee, and that didn't work out. And he goes, why don't you join me at Ordinary Hero Coaching? And he goes, I know your background, you know mine. We've known each other since, fall of 1989 when we first met, but hadn't connected for literally 30 years.
Yeah.
But there was an immediate connection. And, he's got an unbelievable skill set, and his strengths are very complementary to mine. And so we decided to join forces, and that was official. We kind of made, agreed in principle back in like December, January. But then I had the lacrosse season that Jason was very gracious enough to say, hey, man, go do your thing with the guys. And we finished up our season, and June 1st, we made it official. And so we're partners in the space now.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. What a journey, and it's so how God, does the career assignments, if you will, right? It's like, when I graduated college, I had no idea that one day I would be, because and I appreciate your vulnerability also, Adam. Well, especially now knowing EQ and what I've learned about leadership, and what I'm learning about leadership and EQ, I was emotionally clueless when I mean, for most of my life. I mean,
Yeah.
until literally, probably 7, 8 years ago, I was emotionally clueless. I was literally a 40-year-old emotional 5-year-old. And so to think like, oh my gosh, like for most of my life as a leader or in leadership positions, just how clueless I was. And what's even worse is confident in my cluelessness. Like I was, you know, yeah, man, it's so I appreciate that, Adam, that you said, hey man, I don't know that I was a very good leader in the military. I mean, I was enthusiastic. I've always been enthusiastic, but man, there's so much I didn't know. Um, so anyway, thank you both for sharing your journeys. So there's so many questions I could jump into. What let's see. What what have you all found to be missing in the leadership space?
I'll take that one first. I know, Jason's probably got tons of examples with his all of his clients and hours of coaching. But for me, and I say this not because I look out into the space and see it as much as I look in the mirror and saw it, was again a lack of vulnerability and a lack of like a willingness. You kind of touched on it. No, well, I'm always fascinated with how great people say they are. I coach from a position of I want to share with you all of the missteps and mistakes. And again, it's not like I'm pouring my heart out to my clients, but I'm not a guy who goes in and says you should listen to me because I'm anointed. I'm the chosen one. It's quite the opposite. It's like, hey, you can or can choose to listen or work or have me coach you, but here's why. It's because this is the laundry list of things that I did wrong. Looking back, I don't know that I would have wanted to be led by me or managed by me. Here's why, and try to, again, I do that more so on the consulting side, but it's that to me is one of the great opportunities for a lot of young and rising leaders is just to get honest and get vulnerable about, where they're struggling and where they have room for growth, as opposed to, the old saying, never let them see you sweat. Well, everybody sees you sweating except so that to me is probably the number one motivating factor and something that I encounter quite a bit.
Excellent. Jason, how about you?
I think for me, I think the thing that's missing in the leadership space is understanding how human beings interact. Like what I mean by that is like, emotion is a bad word in the military. There is a certain expectation, kind of like what Adam was saying, is where, you project success, you hide fallibility, but it's the fallibility that enables human beings to connect. And at its core, if you understand how emotions work in human beings, then you can understand how to kind of really connect and inspire them. And that was something completely absent from all the leadership conversations that I remember having, going all the way back to PL 100. If you can remember those days, everything was, we're going to have a pizza party, right? And that's going to solve everything. Um, and I don't fault them, because I don't know if we knew as much then as we do now about that, but I think that is the critical thing that is missing in the space. I think people are the most underutilized resource across organizations because people just don't understand. And by people, I mean those who are in charge don't necessarily understand how to connect with and inspire them. And it's hard because every human being is different. It's easier just to say, here's the standard, you're going to move up or you're going to move out. And so that's the easier way to do it. The harder way is this intimate connection. And I don't mean intimate in terms of, playing favorites and everything's personal, but truly understanding how emotions are at work in people, because that's where all the drivers come from.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, and this is going to give me some more context too to ask some other questions. Wh- Who would you all say is your target audience?
I think in some ways, Noble, we're still figuring that out. I will, again, not to speak for Jason, but he's got unbelievable experience in the military veteran transition space. I've got a pretty, good background in athletics and sports coaches, and also the nonprofit space. But I think what we're focusing on right now is we're kind of industry agnostic, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
it's not so much what you do from industry standpoint, as much as where you are within your organization and within your own personal journey.
Mm.
So, we obviously want people who have high potential, that are looking to become better versions of themselves, better leaders and better managers. And so, you know, we've had conversations, you know, since we kicked this thing off with everything from nonprofit CEOs to for-profit CEOs. And so again, I know in the coaching business that, you know, find your niche, exploit your niche, et cetera. For us, it's more, again, like the individual and where they are along the journey.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that's great.
I absolutely agree with everything that Adam just said.
Mm,
I think one of the things that we're trying to do is, what we think is interesting about our society is that, for all its flaws, what the military does very well is that they focus on really tapping into individual potential, right? Like it's backwards from how it works in the civilian world, where in the civilian world you get a very strong functional expertise, and then you start growing into a leader. The military does it the exact opposite. You've got no functional experience and you're the platoon leader, and then I'm going to move you to another job that you've never done before, and you're going to be in charge there too. And so it really forces you to learn about yourself in a very experiential way. Now they supplement that with education opportunities and whatnot, along the journey, such that by the time you get to like the end of what would be a 20-year career, you've got all of this knowledge and experiential wisdom, etc. And one of the things that we're trying to do is find a way to repurpose that to help organizations, take advantage of all that experiential learning and wisdom in a very practical way in organizations. Because the military population is shrinking. It's about 6% of the workforce today. In 20 years, it's going to be down to 3%. And so the challenge is you've got all these men and women who are trial by fire developed to really step into very difficult situations, have to really connect with people and understand them and motivate and inspire them like they are the absolute experts at doing that. But we're not taking advantage of that talent once it leaves, and we're trying to put them into a project manager's role or an operations manager title, and not to say that they can't do it, and not to say that those positions aren't important, but you're leaving a lot of potential and value that is not being appropriately engaged for the benefit of that organization. And that is a lot of that's part of the underlying strategy of what we're trying to do with this organization is we want to create the bridge for people to go out there and then make differences in different organizations and communities across the country.
No, well, I want to share something real quick on that point too, because and this is again, it's one of the things that I think the light bulb went off when Jason and I reconnected and talked about joining forces. Like my brother is a cop and my sister is a teacher and my other sister's a nurse, right? And so think about if you want to be financially more successful or climb the corporate ladder in those three instances, what do you have to do? Well, the cop has to leave the street, the nurse has to leave the hospital room, and the teacher has to leave the classroom so that they can get into administration. Like think about what we are asking of those people in that now, not all of them. There are plenty of cops who are ready to be chiefs and nurses who are ready to be managers and teachers who are ready to be principals. But more often than not, we'll take an unbelievably successful individual, and in order for them to grow, we'll take them out of what they do best, right? And so that bridge that Jason's talking about is giving people the tools to do things like establish your why, create some emotional intelligence, and prepare yourself to be a leader. And again, I've always thought about that analogy, especially with my sister, who's the teacher. She's a phenomenal teacher. But in order for her to climb that corporate ladder, we'd have to take the teacher away from the classroom. That's a lose for the kids. It's probably a lose for the teacher. And then we put my sister in an admin position. Maybe she'd succeed, maybe she wouldn't, but it could be a lose for the school, right? So that's kind of where I think this bridge, the analogy I use for that bridge, and that can be applied to any organization, for profit or nonprofit.
That's excellent. I love those analogies. And it's so funny. So our particular niche has been multi-generational family-owned manufacturing companies. For some reason, no idea how that ended up, but that's kind of the so far our portfolio, our company portfolio, many of our companies that we're working with, it's that dynamic. And in many of those companies, what happens is the dynamic is that you both shared, the SME, subject matter expert, gets promoted into that leadership role, and they often find themselves like, dude, I just know how to turn wrenches better than everybody else. That doesn't mean I know how to manage the wrench turners. I just know how to do it myself, right? And so they many companies find their, junior level, mid-level managers in positions very unprepared and ill-equipped to both manage and lead their respective teams.
Mhm.
What have you all found helps companies and leaders identify the strengths, or I think, Jason, you said the I don't remember exactly the term, but it was something like unused potential in those leaders to help those younger leaders excel or succeed?
Well, I think it all comes down to you've got to tap into what your intrinsic qualities are. And I would say that that's the thing that we never really did in the military very well. And intrinsic qualities I'm talking about, and Adam referred to it, we call it like a leader identity. You've got values. Values are the lens through which you see the world. Um, like military leaders will naturally gravitate. Well, the Army values are my values. No, not really. Um, your values align with those values, sure, because especially if you spend a career in the Army, then clearly there's alignment. But that's not really how you see the world. Understanding strengths, and there are so many different assessment tools out there for strengths because we don't have a consensus on what a strength is. But to get clarity about, and that's some of what we do is we'll combine strengths metrics to see where there are similarities and overlaps. And so that people understand the things that they not only do well, but that they're actually excited to do. And then lastly, thinking through, how would you define your purpose? And, the way we do that is we will like explore a part of your career, take a look at some of the peak moments that happened and really break down the 5 W's of what was going on there to kind of create themes. And the whole plan here is that we're trying to make conscious something that is unconscious. Like you go through life and your values, your strengths, your purpose, they're at work in you, but you just don't know it. And so what we want to do as the most important step is we want people to be able to see that so that they can apply it with conscious intention in terms of how they move forward. Like these are the assets, when you do that military mission analysis, these are the assets that you have available to create value. And the better we can help people understand them, the better that they can go and apply them. And that's where we think coaching is such a unique intervention because the way these things present themselves is through the emotions. The positive emotions become the reinforcer, the negative emotions telling you that you're starting to glide off track. But, because, at least I know when Adam and I were growing up, emotions are a bad thing. You're not supposed to have them. You're not supposed to show them. Like, these things are still working in you and you're still feeling these things. You're just ignoring them. So that's what we have come to think that, all right, well, this is the way that you help junior leaders is at first start with seeing themselves and really understanding themselves and helping them recognize how they can apply these things in a very conscious, deliberate way.
Yeah, love it. Adam, any additional thoughts?
No, I mean, it's Jason hit it on the head, and that was again a light bulb moment for me as a kind of a not a young guy, and not I don't know if I was middle aged, but again, when I probably in my 30s, when the first time I ever sat down and took a DISC assessment, and then did a core values exercise, and then did a strengths exercise, and none of those things I had given any thought, prior to them being introduced to me. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's why I've been the way I've been, or that's why I've missed opportunities to be a better leader, a better manager. And
Exactly.
the one thing I'll add with to what Jason just said is that in addition to the strengths and values, I love the simple exercise, especially with somebody who's in a position of where they're getting a promotion or moving into management, of literally just simply asking the question, why? Like, why do you want to do, why are you doing this? Like, one of my favorite coaching engagements was with a former teammate of mine who had just gotten promoted into a management role for the first time in her career. And I asked her the question, why do you want to manage? And, if we're honest with ourselves and we haven't given it much thought, a lot of it is, I want to climb the ladder. I want the raise. I want to be in a position of influence, but they don't understand or haven't taken time to understand their true why. And I just love that because and it's not an easy question to answer for many people. And for me, again, why am I so passionate about that simple question? Well, when I was a young guy, the only reason I wanted to manage was the prestige, the power, the raise, climbing the ladder, enhancing the resume. I wasn't thinking about the people that had been put in my care. I wasn't thinking about their relationships outside of work, their kids, their parents, their spouses, their professional growth. I was much more of a manager than I was a leader in many cases. And so that's always been a big one for me is, the old Simon Sinek, start with why, so.
Yeah, great. That's great. Who does coaching work for and who does coaching not work for?
I'll
I think for me, my opinion is that coaching works for people um, who, as Adam I think said in the very beginning, you have to have a desire to be vulnerable. You have to have a desire to see yourself for who you really are. And I think if you have the courage to do that, coaching can be very effective. If you just want to solve a problem, like, hey, I want to be able to do this better. I want to be able to increase my efficiency. I want to be better at work but you don't want to take that step and go into that vulnerable space. I don't think coaching's the right intervention for you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of coaching works for those who want to be coached, and it doesn't work for those who don't want to be coached. and
As
and that's
simple as that is.
it's one of the easiest similarities too between coaching as an athletics coach, like as a lacrosse coach. If you don't want to be coached, it doesn't matter what I say. As your
Sure.
coach, if you want to be coached, we can take you from good to great. And I again another one of my personal missteps was I was given an executive coach at one point at WWP, not because I needed, not because I was in a bad spot, but because it was like, hey, this is a professional growth opportunity. I didn't want to be coached. I wanted a consultant. I didn't want to coach. I was like, you just come in here and tell me what I need to do to be better. I didn't want to do the work that's required to actually follow my own path and do the work that goes into becoming a better leader or manager. So it's ironic because that was my first real exposure to executive coaching, and I wasn't a good client.
Wow. Okay, so follow-up question based on that comment for both of you, what makes a leader coachable or not coachable?
I'll let you take
Jason,
that one first, Adam.
again, I think it goes back to vulnerability. The willingness to be coached, because in order to do the work, you got to turn the rock over and see all the ugly things crawling in the dirt.
You got to be
Um,
brutally honest with yourself.
yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
not willing to do that, if you want quick fixes, if you want to, just kind of get the answers to the problem, so to speak, then it's not a coaching intervention. And I'm sure you've worked with plenty of people who are like, hey, just tell me what I have to do in order to get this better. And there's a part of you that probably has a few good suggestions, as anybody would. A third party going in, fresh eyes, there's a chance there for you to tap into some value. However, the person who wants to be coached says, I'm not where I really want to be, and I'm not really sure how to get there. And I've got the courage to say that. And so I'm going to come to you and I'm going to open up, and hopefully you can help me see those things that I'm missing so that I can get to where I want to go. And it takes a lot of courage, especially for leaders, to do that. I wouldn't have done that when I was a lieutenant. I would have been hiding that. All my fallibility, I would have been hiding. And what I've come to learn is that those vulnerabilities, those are the greatest strengths in an organization. When I took battalion command, I brought everybody into the church there on Hunter Army Airfield down in Savannah. And the first thing I did was I talked about my own mental health issues, panic attacks, anxiety, all these kinds of things. And I used that as a way of starting off. And because, a lot of times you get into those commander presentations and it's all the, hey, I went to school here and here are my awards and here's all the great things. I did it in an entirely different way, and it totally changed the dynamic of the organization in what I think was a positive way. Now, there's a lot of risk to that, but again, that's where that courage piece comes from. I wanted people to see me as a human being first, because then I can lead them. They can follow, Lieutenant Colonel and salute that and all day long. I can give the 8-year-old the rank and people will salute it, but that doesn't mean anybody's really following you.
Yeah, that's great. Jason, what would you say if you had a client like Adam who said, "Dude, just tell me what I need to do." How do you help a leader in that headspace? How do you coach a leader in that headspace? You said, "Dude, Jason, all right, just tell me what I got to do, bro."
I would start with the question of, like, I would start with the, hey, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? Would be the first probably question that I would throw at them. And they would probably come back and say, well, dude, I don't know what to do. Right. Or that's why I'm asking you. I want you to tell me what to do. And then I would be like, okay, well, why don't we take a step back together and see kind of where we are, that maybe we can't find out or a solution becomes evident here, and then we would start to maybe explore. And one of the questions I'd want to get to in that situation is, what makes you believe you don't have what it takes to do this on your own? you know like, to me, that there's that limiting belief, assumption, obstacle that's kind of there. And so I would start off approach wise with, okay, well, let's explore what's keeping you from seeing this on your own. And I would walk back with them through the problem, hey, explain to me what you believe the nature of the problem to be, and then what tells you that that's the problem. Hey, what comes up for you when we talk about these problems? What kinds of emotions do you feel? To try and really call that out, and then maybe go into the area of, well, what would right look like? And then, just that's really about the approach that I would take there.
Yeah, I love it. Adam, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, and this goes back to what Jason teaches in the course that we offer now too, is also defining what coaching is. And that was part of my challenge, is that I wasn't looking for a coach. And so I didn't understand what he wasn't, the coach wasn't the problem. It was the fact that I didn't understand what coaching was. It's not therapy and it's not consulting. And so I was looking more for a consultant than a coach. And so that's one of the things we do, like the upfront contract. This is what coaching is. This is what it's going to take. And so I would, for me, again, that would have been a big help.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. How do you coach a leader, Gen X leader like us, who is wanting to be more effective in a multi-generational workforce?
Jason, you want to take that one?
Can you ask it again?
How do you coach a leader, Gen X leader, who is wanting to be a more effective leader in a multi-generational workforce?
I think what it comes down to, and this is a big problem, right? And it's a big problem because the millennials and the Gen Zers have different expectations in the workforce than we did, and with the boomers as well. Like we were told, you got to grit and bear it. You're gonna pay your dues. Like that. I mean, that's all the stuff our parents told us, right? And so you got to go in there, you're going to have to grind. And then if you work hard enough, you get an opportunity. So our experience is much different than what their experience is. And what they're looking for is they're looking for more of that human interaction, more of that, hey, I want to be mentored. I want to be coached. I want to be developed on an individual level. And so we come from a generation where we didn't really get that, not to that level. And so I think the gap there is that, hey, we don't really know how to do that. So the way that I would coach a leader on how to bridge that gap is that, we would give them tools in order to do that. We would help to increase their own sense of emotional intelligence, on themselves, help them to see themselves so that they can be more vulnerable and open in terms of how they're engaging these other human beings. So break it down, because at the end of the day, the common ground is that they're all human, like we're all people. Their path is slightly different from our path. And I think that a lot of the unfair criticism of the younger generations is that, well, hey, they don't want to pay their dues. They don't want to do things the way we do them. I think, when you look at our generation, there's deficiencies that we have with how we were brought up, through the workforce, even through the military. Because again, like we said at the very beginning of this, we didn't talk about any of this stuff, in any of our leadership classes. So, and when you're successful, when you become a leader of an organization, the blueprint you have for success is the one you just did. And so these younger generations, they're like, well, I don't want to go that path. Well, if that's the only path I know, then I don't know how I can help you. That's where teaching them and giving them the tools to be more effective. They don't have to be a coach, but they can integrate coaching style into how they lead. They could do a better job of connecting with them.
Yeah, that's great. Adam?
Yeah, and for me, it's that old saying: you learned everything you needed to know in kindergarten. Treat people how you want to be treated. And like this Noble, this could have been a podcast about vulnerability, because it all goes back to, I have been lucky and blessed over the last 20 years to work with kids and coach them through the game of lacrosse. But I don't coach this. I'm not coaching the game. I'm coaching the individual. And what I've found is, if I'm willing to get up there and be vulnerable and open, again, I'm 53 years old. I don't have 17-year-old friends. You know what I mean? But if I'm willing to be in front of them as their authentic coach, and not preach at them or not talk down to them, that same thing applies in the workforce. And if you create an organizational culture that's healthy and you're willing to be transparent and vulnerable and honest. I used to have a whiteboard behind my desk at WWP, and I would list my annual key performance indicators on the whiteboard, so that every time one of my teammates came in and sat across from me at that desk, they'd look up on the board, they'd know exactly what I was going to be held responsible for. And again, when we made mistakes, I owned them. When we had successes, they were given credit. I think there's a lot of those little things about just treating people well, not having them punch time clocks for the sake of punching time clocks. You know, the old "we train to time, not to standard." You know, in the army, I'm like, look, if you got to go get your hair done, go get your hair done. You got to get an oil change, do it. You know, just I trust you. I think, and again, being willing to explain the why, you know, behind a lot of decisions. It just doesn't take that much effort. I used to also tell my teammates, I'm like, look, you want to see the budget? I'll get you a copy of the budget. I'll take out salary, tax, and fringe for the employees. You want to know what I'm spending, what they're spending, what, you know, yeah, by all means, let's be open and honest and transparent about it. Which to me kind of goes back to, this is part of the why.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, kind of getting ready to land the plane here. So there's an old book, sales book back in the days called Selling to Vito, very important top officer. In there, it had 3 questions. And I want to ask you all these 3 questions. And you can answer these 3 questions in one answer. What is Ordinary Hero Coaching's overt benefit, dramatic difference, and reason to believe? Right? Overt benefit, dramatic difference, and reason to believe. What is unique about Ordinary Hero Coaching? What makes you guys unique? What is different about what you all do specifically in this leadership, coaching, leader development space?
Boy, that's a good one. That's a I'll say this from my perspective, and brag on Jason a little bit. I've been able to sit in a bunch of the classes that we're doing, the certification classes that Jason conducts, and I've been blown away. Like, I went through certification several years ago. I thought it was fantastic. What Jason's doing with the cohort that he's teaching right now has literally knocked me off my chair. And I would say that whether we were partners or not, like, it is so much more in depth and so much more authentic than what I experienced. And again, that's not a criticism. I have nothing but positives to say about my certification experience. But again, you know, being coached by a master certified coach like Jason, who's also willing to be vulnerable and authentic, is really unique. And I haven't seen any of his coaching sessions, but I know that's going to be the same when he's on, you know, on with one of his clients. And so I think those are, you know, that to me sets us apart. And again, it's kind of easy for me to say that because unless you're in our organization, you're not going to witness that. But truly, that to me is what sets us apart.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, Adam, for saying that. What I would say is that what we're trying to do that I think makes us different is that we're trying to capitalize on all the great things that people have already, and we're trying to make them better and more practical in terms of like a military to non-military setting. So we're trying to tap into successful leaders. So these are people who already have demonstrated success at leadership in many different genres, special operators, Top Gun aviators, you name it. And then what we're doing with them is we're helping them to reframe that experience through a lot of the coaching psychology and the positive psychology so that you understand like the science and research behind it so that it's no longer this is just how it was done in the military. Well, the military did it this way. It's backed up by this science, and therefore it can apply in a civilian area like this. And then finally, we do the coaching thing, and we really focus on getting into and connecting with the individual. And not only are we doing that as like they're going through coach training, yes, but they're being coached as they're going through this training. And they are learning how to really tap into that individual in a way that they can teach others to do it. because one of the things we're trying to create here is for people who go through the program, other successful coaches, is we're trying to create a fellowship here where, like you have organizations where there's continuous learning, education, collaboration, professional development. Well, there's none of that in any of these coaching organizations. Well, we're trying to do that. So we want to create, and this is what I would say is what's truly different, is that we have a very grand vision of what we want this organization to be. And what it will be is populations of coaches all over the country, all right, who are doing this very meaningful human connection, engagement, optimization, um, all over the country. They're doing that at an elite level, and they are transforming organizations. And because, like, when you go through our program, you get to use everything that's in the program through as you're out there coaching. Why? Because we want you to change your community. We're not interested in making coaches for the transactional value of running a business. We're interested in making coaches because we believe that's the bridge that's going to optimize that leadership talent for non-military applications to truly transform this country as a whole. And so we are kind of advocating this revolution of leadership through the kind of work that we're doing. And so I would say that it's the difference starts with that vision, and then it goes to the experiential learning with the science and the coach, what we're learning about the coaching process, which is really all about understanding how do you connect with a person on an emotional level, help them understand those emotions, and then optimize them to achieve their goals. And that's what we're trying to do.
Powerful. Powerful. Love it. Okay. Last question. How do we follow you guys? How do we find you guys? How do we connect with you? Websites, resources?
Yeah, our website, ordinaryherocoaching.com. We're putting out a lot of information related to the organization, but also, what Jason just powerfully, talked about through both of our LinkedIn pages as well. Jason and I both have our individual pages. There's also an Ordinary Hero Coaching LinkedIn page. And that's really, those have been the LinkedIn and the website are the two primary drivers for the way we're communicating right now.
Excellent. Okay. And can you guys just say for the audience, what are your LinkedIn profile names?
Mine is Adam Silva, Silva, and then Ordinary Hero Coaching is the LinkedIn for the company.
And just Jason Roncoroni, Roncoroni. Yeah, that's it for my LinkedIn page.
Excellent. Excellent. Absolutely can't thank you guys enough. Totally appreciate you all sharing your journeys and some tremendous insights into people and leadership. Super appreciate your guys' time and wisdom.
Thank you, Noble. Been really cool. Appreciate you having us.